Hi, everybody. Not used to talking into a microphone. It's a little scary, but bear with me. If you can't hear me, just raise your hand. So this talk is helping the public keep their rabbits at home. It's about the problem of returns. As you can see here, returns overburden shelters and rescues. They can hinder volunteer morale and lead to burnout. Returns can lead to feelings of hurt, betrayal, and worse, cynicism and anger, which I don't know about you, but I have certainly felt the full range of emotions when it comes to returns. However, I'd like to tell you the story of the turkey and the sage, and I promise you it's not a recipe. Long time ago, there was a king, and his son, the prince, went mad and took off all his clothes and would only sit under the table. And many people tried to cure the prince, but nobody could. None of the physicians, psychiatrists of the king could cure him. Until a sage, a wise man, it's not really sage, a wise man came along and said, I'll take a crack at him. I think I can cure him. Okay. So the wise man strips off his clothes and gets under the table with the prince. And there they spend time together. And eventually they become friends. And then, a few weeks later, the sage motions to a servant, bring me a shirt. And the servant brings him the shirt. The prince looks at him. The prince is like, what? And the sage says, what? So a turkey? I'm a turkey. I can't wear a nice shirt? Give my friend a shirt. And they give him a shirt. And later, the wise man, the sage, says, I think I want some pants. He raises his hand, bring me some pants. Why can't a turkey? I'm a turkey, you're a turkey, why can't we wear pants? So he gives him some pants, and he puts them on. And eventually the sage gets up, sits at the table, and says, hey, why can't a turkey sit at the table? I can sit at the table. And the prince comes to the table. So whether he still believed he was a turkey or not, his behavior had changed. And it wasn't by yelling at him under the table. It wasn't by condemning him. You're crazy, you stupid turkey. It was by becoming a turkey, by befriending him on his level. And that's what my talk is about. So, resources for coping. This is a concept I came up with recently, or that I read recently, and I think it applies to all of us. It applies to our group, it applies to our country, and it applies to our adopters. And we all have resources for coping, and they're not always going to be the same. And they're cumulative. So if you have emotional and psychological health, it will be easier for you. Education. Do you have family and friends? Do you have a husband to support you or a wife? Do you have your health and your physical health? Because when you're sick, you can't do what you could do when you were healthy. And also social, cultural, and language. If you are a person who was raised in a culture where rabbits are food, you can't expect that person to change their mind and change their heart overnight. And especially not if we are condescending towards them or rude to them, which is the natural response. But it's not a good idea. I can give you a brief example about this. I used to live in Madison, Wisconsin. Anybody here from Madison? I know that some of you are. Back in the 90s, there was a huge influx of Hmong people who are the mountainous people of northern Vietnam. They're kind of the equivalent of Native Americans here. And they came in as refugees in droves in the 90s. And the librarian that I worked with befriended one of these families. And one day she was at the park and she saw the father and the father was roasting a squirrel on the grill that he had just caught. Now, you might want to be like, oh my God, you're eating a squirrel? But she wasn't. She was kind and gently explained to him, well, we don't really do that here. So we can't, again, we have to come from kindness. We have to think about, do these people have the same resources that I do? And should I be judging people based on my resources instead of looking at them and thinking about where they're at? And what is their mindset? What is their cultural, their language, everything. So we've all heard these before. These are common reasons for returns. Aggression, we've talked about. Allergies, the kids lose interest. It's a mess. They're conflicting with other animals. We can't afford it. We're moving. We don't have the time. To us, these are just excuses, right? I know I hear this, it's like, oh, okay, another excuse. Here we go. But we have to remember that these are individuals. Next. And so I like to do an exit interview. The way that returns happen in our group is we get an email. Oh, I can't keep him anymore. I have to return him. And sometimes you want to leave it at that. But I don't. I like to call them or see them in person. I want to make that personal connection. I want to find out why. So the exit interview techniques are, you make that personal connection. Sometimes if you're angry, you want to do some deep breathing, you want to relax. You don't want to call them when you're already mad, right? You want to be in a good space. You don't want to I'm old-fashioned. I don't want to email or Facebook or send a text because I can't tell what they're feeling from those things. But if I'm on a phone call or in person, I can get a better idea. You also want to keep that open mind and that non-judgmental attitude, which is very hard for me in particular, because every case is unique. And when we start lumping people together is when we get in trouble, and that's why we're all so divided as a country. Because we want to keep that open mind. We want to offer sympathy and compassion. I've seen this so many times. Somebody's getting a divorce. Somebody's spouse has died. And we're just pissed off because they're returning the rabbit. Now, how does that make people feel? What does that take forward in their lives? That they were at their lowest. I had one lady who was in the middle of a divorce, had a new baby, and, she just needed somebody to listen and really care, not just be like, oh, whatever, you're returning the rabbit, and I made a connection with her, and actually she ended up keeping the rabbit, which was like my best success story ever. So you want to keep that in mind, let's be human, let's not lump them in with the last guy, and be organized. Next. I take copious notes about everything. And I also think we need to do some creative listening. So you want to be a sleuth. I approach it as a mystery to solve. I'm naturally curious, I'm very nosy, and I'll get right in there and I will ask, what's going on? You don't say, why don't you want your bunny? Or, you want to open-ended questions, leave it to them. Also, you want to listen to what they're not saying. Are they not saying, I'm heartbroken, I'm going to miss my bunny? Or are they saying that? That will tell you just as much as what they are saying. So keep that in mind when you're asking your follow-up questions. If they say, oh, I just feel so guilty because I don't have time to spend with the bunny. That's a feeling. They feel guilty. They want to do better for the rabbit. Whereas if they're just like, I don't got time for him. I don't know that anybody would say that to us, but in an email they can, right? It's so easy to blow somebody off in an email or a text. But in person, you can get a better idea. And of course, their tone of voice. We haven't been on this earth for 100,000 years just so that we can read email. We have grown to look in the eyes, to see the face, to see the lies, to see the truth. And that's what I recommend, is that in-person or at least on the phone interaction. When the love is gone. Look at that sad little bunny down at the bottom. That's little guy. Little guy had to be returned, and he had a very sad story. His mother had lupus and lots of allergies. And I made an emotional appeal. And I think we should all be willing to do that. Say, do you still love the bunny? Don't beat around the bush. Is the love gone? Because that will tell us if it's worth all these trying to make it work. So I asked for the truth. How do you feel? And I asked about the kids because the mom with lupus had a son who loved little guy, this bunny, desperately. It was a heartbreaking situation. They tried. We tried everything with the allergies. It got to the point where little guy could only be in the garage, and they knew he was not having the life that he deserved. And so we have to accept that not all relationships can be saved, but we don't want to leave those people with a bad taste in their mouth about House Rabbit Society. We did everything we could, and we were kind and compassionate when he had to be returned. Oops, wait. Oh, okay, that's right. We at New Mexico House Rabbit Society, we've talked before, Suzanne talked about rehoming and relocation, and we do the same thing. I recommend you all create guidelines for rehoming, such as, like she said, we have the online courtesy listing where they keep the rabbit in the home and we are advertising it. We also put their adoptable rabbits in our newsletter, which is print and online. And then with relocation, you know, if people are moving, you can get in there and say, where are you moving? And can we research these animal laws? Do you have too many animals for where you're going to live? Do the airlines accept them? What are the quarantine regulations? These are things that we can help people with so that if you do feel, hey, they still love this animal, we can salvage this. But if they're just like, we're moving, we can't take them, just, you know, you'll know when you're hitting a brick wall. So next, hope for a new start. There's little guy. He got returned, but he ended up in a much better place. Okay, so next, we talked about financial things. We live in New Mexico, one of the poorest states, I think just behind Mississippi. The population is Hispanic, Native American, and white, about 30% of each, a little bit of others, but most of the Native Americans are very, very poor, and it's kind of sad. So we like to keep a file for helping people financially. We keep a file of the low-cost spay and neuter programs. We don't have our own shelter, but we have shelters that we can take them to. We also we can recommend Care Credit, which is the 0% loan, which I know I needed when our dog died, and it was $4,500. And you know, it was very heartbreaking financially as well as emotionally. But the Care Credit Card really saved us. And that's something that most people can get. We also have something very special in New Mexico. We have the Danelle Sandoval Newhall Bunny Hugs Fund. And Danelle was a wonderful woman, a volunteer with us, who unfortunately passed away at a very young age. And she left us a very generous bequest. And we've kept that fund going in her honor because she had a dream that all animals and low-cost people would be able to take their animals to the vet. So we get a lot of donations to this fund every year, people who knew her, people who didn't, and we offer that to people when they can't afford to go to the vet. We will use that money to help pay for vet services. Also, sometimes I've had adopters who were like strapped for cash. I buy them a 25-pound bag of Oxbow. I mean, that's $25, which is nothing compared to keeping a rabbit in the home. And we do that quite a bit for people, and they really appreciate it. And we know the rabbit is getting the right thing to eat. Next. Allergies. Now, I didn't used to believe in allergies because I've never had pet allergies. I met my husband, he's allergic to cats. I had 3 cats and they weren't going anywhere. So we had to manage those allergies. A little older now, I do believe that allergies are a real thing, but it's easy to blow them off, right? Oh yeah, he's got allergies, It really does happen. These allergens have been detected in fur, dander, urine, and saliva. So no rabbit is hypoallergenic. We had somebody looking for a lion head. They thought it wouldn't shed, it's hypoallergenic. No, even if they're hairless. These proteins in their saliva and these other bodily fluids and hair and things contain glycoproteins and lipocalins, which can cause allergic rhinitis, potentially life-threatening asthma, rashes, etc. So the last thing I want to do is pressure somebody to keep their rabbit and then they have an asthma attack and die, right? So we have to be sensitive and not just be like, oh yeah, sure, you've got allergies. But if they do, if they love the rabbit, if they're willing to work on it, we can find what is that allergy. Maybe it's not the rabbit, maybe it's the hay variety. One of my dogs was allergic to brome grass. And every few months his face is blowing up huge and I'm like, oh, take him to the vet, couple $100. Finally had the allergy testing done, found out the dog was allergic to brome grass. And I mean, I had tons of it. I ordered it all the time. So you have to just keep experimenting with those different things to see, are you allergic to everything or just one thing? You want to keep the rabbit clean and well groomed. You want to wipe them daily. I like to use a damp paper towel to get those. That's what I did with the cats. Every day, wiped them down. HEPA filters, you got to vacuum. It's good to have that allergy-free zone like the bedroom or somewhere you can go to breathe if you're... So we would ideally like people to have skin and blood testing to see what their allergies are, but those can be very expensive, and the shots that you get are also very expensive, up to $800 a year. So a lot of people, they just can't afford that, and we shouldn't judge them because of that. There's also medications, inhalers. This is a rabbit. He was going to return that little lion head. I groomed her. Granted, she probably looks a little scary after, but he kept her. So that's the moral of that. Quickly, the next slide. Oh, there again. I'm just saying, learn how to groom. If you're by yourself, find a vet tech, find a groomer who does cats, because cats are a little more similar to rabbits, and learn how to do this, because grooming is one of the main reasons we get returns, because they can't keep up on top of that hair. And I actually teach a grooming class, and we do nail trims, all that stuff at our events. Okay, next. So let's get on to some time-saving tips that will help your adopters cope with their rabbits. This is the one I used with the pregnant woman, some of these tips. You always want to have all your animals have a current ID card right there, even if this is just your pet. What if you got sick? What if you had to go out of town all of a sudden? Can somebody step in? I want a 5-year-old to be able to step in and take care of my animals. I want it to be that easy. So we want to get the whole family involved. As you can see here, I have instructions, care instructions, how to take care of the rabbits. Everybody's got their card. Next. I also like to do, I'm kind of obsessive, I like to do pre-made food cups and labeled food rations, okay? This is at home, this is just me, all right? But this is a good thing you can get the kids involved with, get the family. Hey, it's Sunday night, Let's fill up the food dishes so on Monday morning, we're tired, we're running out the door, we can just, here's the food. We don't have to think about it. You want to make it so people, I left this for my husband so he does not have to think. I also like to use pre-made litter boxes. They're, again, just me, not a shelter. I'm crazy. But if I leave, my pet sitter, my husband, whoever knows, everybody gets a fresh box every day. I left those when I left. Only thing is, make sure they don't just stack them up when they're dirty. Once I came home to like 15 moldy litter boxes because they just said, oh, we'll just, stack them here. No, that doesn't work. Next. This is little guy. He's a problem child. He doesn't use the litter box. So we use the all litter box solution, which I learned from y'all, right? And, I was skeptical, I'll admit it. I'm like, oh, it ain't gonna work. But it actually worked, and eventually he started using one box. I can't guarantee it, only tried it one time, small sample, but it could work. So give it a shot, if that's the problem. Now, again, obsessive, the busy pet parent. I have pet cams all over the house, and I think this is a fun thing to do, again, with the family. If you're a busy working person and you're worried about the rabbits, you can have them on your screen all day long. I mean, I don't even work outside the home and I have pet cams, okay? I'm weird. Okay, next. Busy families, right? So we see this a lot. And so what you want to do is really get the family to involve the children. I know a lot of you like to do rabbit yoga. I still haven't tried that yet. But these fun activities that you can provide for people to come to. We did a toy making seminar. We did a Watership Down program. And so you want to involve everybody in the literature, in the culture, and the kids, they're on YouTube. You can follow Bun Space. Just really get involved in that whole fun part because you don't want it to just be a lot of work. Next. And then for those of you who are new educators, don't forget our website. This website is fantastic, and it has everything you would ever possibly need. So familiarize yourself with it, and you can use it when you're talking to people. Aggression, like Joy talked about, litter training, whatever the problem is. Talk them through it. They don't want to feel like they're left on their own. They want to feel like they have that support, and that's what we can give them. All right. Other resources. Be aware of other chapters. Some of y'all, most of you, have some of the best websites ever. And I go to other chapters. We have our chapter, and I always use those websites for answers. There's also help from ASPCA, Humane Society, how to keep your pet in the home. This care group is fantastic. This is APNM, Animal Protection New Mexico. They have a program where they will take the animals of a domestic violence situation. And so you want to connect with them and know about them, right? Not that a lot of people are going to admit that to you, but it's good to know. It's good to have that in case for some reason somebody actually really opens up to you, and they just might. Next. Oh, there's little guy. He got adopted by a wonderful family who just like dote on him. Two ladies who he's their whole life. And so there are happy endings here. So that's the end. I'd like to thank Iris Klismic for her help with research. I'd also like to thank Margot DeMello and Bill Velasquez for encouraging me to do this since I don't usually speak to a large group. So I know we're all hungry, so that's all I've got, and thank you so much.